There's certainly something undeniably magical about a well-executed portrait. So the question is, what do we need to see as an artist as we sit in front of a live model for a portrait, or whether we're working with a photograph, whatever the situation is that we're working with? What things can we do to make ourselves comfortable, make the model comfortable, but at the same time to execute accuracy in the most refreshing, we can say comfortable way without stressing anybody out? This is a very important aspect of drawing portraits. When the model is uncomfortable, they look uncomfortable. They look terrible. When we're uncomfortable, we look terrible. I think back when I was just starting, I was in a shopping mall drawing live portraits, and I could feel people breathing down my neck, looking at what I was doing, and it was not comfortable. So let's talk about, what do we see when we're drawing a portrait? One of the most precious things to me is the moment where I visit with the subject and my page is blank, but it gives me an opportunity to project in my mind what the finished drawing would look like on my paper. And without going through that little step, I could execute or enter the process of drawing the portrait as though I'm prodding in the dark, letting my lines lead my mind instead of my mind lead my lines. So we always want to have a mindful presence when we're drawing the portrait. So that means looking at the subject and appreciating them for a little while. Talk to them, get to know them, talk about things that are of interest to them so their eyes light up and you see the real person behind those eyes. In the Mark Anthony Studio live drawing atelier that's online, we always feature the portrait and we approach it as though we're drawing a live study. And to me, that's very important. It's easy to copy something, and there are many copy methods and many measuring methods that sort of favor the copying approach. However, when we are drawing live, we could actually become overwhelmed because of the reality of the three-dimensional form and the fact that there's a living person in front of us. That can be intimidating to some degree. So what are things we're looking at? Well, if we can break things down in terms of simple ideal proportions, boy, that helps. That helps so much because we have these milestones that give us assurances that we're on the right track. We're not deviating somehow. We're not guessing our way through this. Structural and surface anatomy, well, you know me by now. I always emphasize that. There's a reason the old masters studied in the morgue, like Leonardo da Vinci, to find out what is behind this magnificent designed machine. How does it work? How does it operate? What are its limits? What are its abilities? What are the gestural movements? So on the head, we need to know what are the movements. And basically, it's the neck area that moves. We have axial rotation, lateral flexion, forward and backwards flexion. But we also have the mandibula, the jaw, that can move. Other than that, the head is basically a static, we can say, landmass. It's static. It basically stays as it is, but we see it in different points of perspective. That's basically the difference. Drawing the anatomical features of the head. There are many anatomical features that sort of can be difficult. The ear, as an example, the helix, the antihelix, all these other things, the concha, and so on. How do we understand those very abstract looking forms? The nose, people oftentimes have trouble with the nose. The eye is always emphasized. And a lot of people have trouble with the mouth. Making the mouth convincing and putting the corners of the mouth in the right place and having a convincing round reference to the maxillary bone that's below the upper lip and so on. How do we structure that? How do we understand it? And then how do we build all of the features together in one big form so it's convincing that it's a real person looking at us with gestural expression? How about light and volumetric form? I always refer to the girl with the pearl earring, Vermeer's beautiful painting, how he was like a photographer of the 20th century, 21st century, chin over the shoulder. He had used some beautiful lighting. Short lighting is what it's called in photography because the shadow is facing us, and revealed the most beautiful references and lost lines or hidden lines like the bridge of the nose where you don't need to see it because it's on the light side of light against a light reference. So what a beautiful example for us. Can we do the same thing in our studio? Key structures like the upper body. How does the head sit on the upper body? If we just draw the head without a neck and part of the shoulders, the clavicles, and so on, it looks like one of those balloons you get at the circus that is tied to a string. We need to have some structure that it sits on, and it's these two muscles, the sternocleidomastoid, that give a convincing evidence of the rotation of the head. Finding out where it is on the mastoid process and then drawing it down to the sternal notch as it inserts there is quite a magnificent study, and it gives us the convincing proof that the head is rotating. How about drawing various ages? Now that's difficult. It's very easy to put in those solid black lines for wrinkles on the forehead of an older person. It's very difficult to capture the accurate age of a child because they are a moving target. The ideal measurements that we use for adults do not exactly work for children because certain bone structures need to grow out. And so it's different. So how do we do that? How do we do it accurately? How do we do facial expressions? How do we study great master portraitists? These are good questions. Now, I invite you to come into the online live drawing atelier and explore these things together. Turn over every pebble, figure out what they did, figure out what we can do using a simple tool, just a pencil. We don't overstate our materials because we want to study the subject itself. And please click on the like, subscribe. I like to add some inspiring words for artists, especially in terms of enjoying the process of getting out of the digital world and getting into the manual world where we refresh ourselves with our own abilities. That's exciting. I don't think that'll ever die, no matter how modern our world gets. And it's beautiful to explore that wonderful computer that's between our ears, our minds, and see what it can do, see what it can see what it can uncover, see what it can express, see what we can express from our hearts.